are at the lowest commissions. Learn more at ibkr.com/CME Mini. And U.S. stock index futures, they're little change to higher as investors digest a flurry of corporate news amid a lull in trade war headlines. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. S&P futures now up 3 points. Dow futures up 27. NASDAQ futures up 10. The DAX in Germany's down 0.2%. 10-year Treasury down 3/30 seconds. Yield 1.89%. Yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.8% or 47 cents at $60.47 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.2% or $2.70 at $14.77.90 an ounce. The euro 1.1118 against the dollar. British pound 1.3080, and the yen is at 109.56. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. Paul, we look over at our screens here. We got like 42 TV screens in the studio to keep us all.
We all do. We're up to speed.
And we're beginning like 6 hours, which you know is going to be 7 or 8, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to go
That's
on
how they
and on. Of this really historic moment, whatever your politics, we'll try to keep the politics out of it right now and just talk about the tenor of the day. We can do that with Emily Wilkins joining us now from Bloomberg News in Washington. Emily, I speak of the tenor of the day. Is it like excitement over this? Is there a sadness over this? What's the actual mood on Capitol Hill?
Speaker Nancy Pelosi has said throughout this process that this is a somber move. She has, tried to do this without, excitement, without a sense of, she's not trying to portray this as some sort of victory for Democrats to do this. She's tried to keep it somber and solemn throughout. Prayerful is a word that she's used a lot. But right now, everyone's just sort of gearing up, as you said, for what is expected to be a very long day. At this point, we're not expecting to see votes on impeachment until around 7:30 this evening.
So, Emily, give us a sense of what actually is going to happen today in the House of Representatives.
So the House of Representatives are going to spend about the next 6 hours debating the rules for the articles of impeachment. And through that, we're going to expect to see Republicans try to do certain things to delay this process. We've already seen this morning them call for a vote on a motion to adjourn and everyone leave. Of course, because Republicans do not have the majority, none of these attempts are expected to actually proceed, but they could slow things down a little bit. But because the rule is structured, there isn't a lot of wiggle room, and so we definitely expect to see votes this evening.
So, Emily, will there be any witnesses today, or is this just representatives going back and forth against each other, kind of pleading their side?
This is just the representatives to give lawmakers the time to come to the floor to speak, to make their case. We're going to be seeing perhaps witnesses in the Senate, but the rules for how the Senate debate is going to go are still under discussion. That's going to begin in January, and that's something that people are looking to Majority Leader Mitch McConnell and Minority Leader Chuck Schumer to see how they wind up working that out.
What are you looking for after this vote? I mean, to be clear here, there's a vote tonight and we're done, right? In the House?
In the House.
Okay,
yes.
then what happens next? What exactly happens next?
So what happens next is that the House is going to take the articles of impeachment and bring them over to the Senate. And then
did they do that on a silver platter? I mean, how do you actually do this? Does anyone know?
You tweet it over?
I think you actually have someone physically walk over between the chambers, and actually go ahead and announce to the Senate these articles of impeachment. I know that's the way they've done it for previous bills.
Interesting.
And then, Emily, so give us a sense of when we get to the Senate, that is actually going to be a trial. So I'll go back to my previous question. I know there's a discussion point between Senator Schumer and McConnell about whether there will be witnesses called. How do you think that's going to play out?
I mean, right now, Republicans do have the majority over there, so they do have something of an edge, but things need to be done through consent. Schumer has certainly asked for witnesses to come. The White House has wanted witnesses to come. They've wanted to present their case, but there's also been discussion, and Bloomberg's reported that there's some hope that this will be a pretty short process, that they can have individuals from the House come over and present the case. We'll have Democrats present the case. We'll have Republicans present the case, and then they can move pretty quickly after that.
Thank you so much, Emily Wilkins. Greatly appreciate it. What will be certainly a long day for her and all of our Bloomberg News team in Washington. Paul, you know how you make like promises for the New Year's resolutions?
Sure.
I don't understand the cloud.
The cloud.
It's just like I talk about it like blather media, happy talk, bow tie talk.
Right. One
of my goals this coming year is to actually get smarter on the cloud.
Okay.
Like read about it.
Read about it. That's a good point.
And Amazon, are they different than Microsoft?
I think they have some different products and services, and but I think as it relates broadly to the cloud, it's kind of Amazon's number one, but Microsoft's a big player there. Alphabet's a big player there.
IBM wants to be,
and IBM wants to be. And then there's lots of other, as I understand it, software companies, all the kind of the companies that Anurag Rana follows that are just around the periphery of the cloud servicing little niches.
Anurag Rana, warned he's my new friend this year.
Yeah, he's going to be your new friend.
Where is the cloud? Is it like out? Is it like out with a Boeing 737 Max is sitting in a desert field in New Mexico?
Think they're just big server farms, if you will, scattered throughout the country.
They don't say where they are because they're worried about security. And all
I don't. That's a great question. I don't know, but I think they're simply taking that capability or taking that infrastructure out of corporate America, if you will, and kind of outsourcing it, if you will, to these big server farms that are kind of run. And then there's obviously, it's not so much the computing as all the services around it, so service around all the technology and the data and the storage and the manipulation of the data. And you just see companies spending just gobs of money on this thing.
It's shocking, folks, the gaps in our knowledge and the crush that we deal with every day. And one of my big gaps, Paul, is the cloud.
Yeah, me too. I agree.
I have to read about
I need the wiki on the cloud. Maybe.
I need more than the wiki, but you're right. That's a good place to start with Mr. Wales' Wikipedia on the cloud. But that's one of my resolutions for next year is, just in that technology aspect, just try to get somewhat up to speed. I remember my brother was with Sun Microsystems, and I walked in his office once, and he had a hard drive that must have cost $10,000 at the time.
Right,
1/10 the size of a nailed to the wall because it broke.
Right, and now you got a super mainframe computer from 20 years ago sitting in your phone.
Yeah, exactly. Futures advance up 4 now. Futures up 33. When you get the market open, this is Bloomberg.
I go to bed feeling the same way.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. General Mills is cooking up gains in pre-market trading. Pet food and cereal are helping the company, which posted profit that topped analyst estimates in the latest quarter. Net sales fell a little short, but revenue from the Blue Buffalo pet food unit surged 16%. Shares of Fiat Chrysler are moving lower in pre-market trading this morning after news that Fiat and Peugeot maker PSA are merging to create the world's fourth largest automaker. The 50-50 merger gives France's Peugeot a long-sought presence in North America and should help Fiat gain ground in developing low-emissions technologies. And Uber today plans to announce an expansion of a temporary staffing service it's been testing in Chicago. Uber Works connects workers with businesses offering short-term jobs in hospitality, events, and other areas. Miami becomes the next city where Uber Works is available, with more planned for next year. Gina Cervetti, Bloomberg Radio.
Message and data rates may apply. T&C and privacy terms can be found at babbel.com/terms. Please don't text and drive.
Have you wanted to speak a new language, but you thought it'd be too hard or take too much time? Then try Babbel for free by texting EXPLORE to 64,000. In just 15 minutes a day, you'll be on your way to speaking a new language in just a few weeks. And right now, you can try Babbel for free. Babbel starts out teaching you words and phrases by matching them with pictures. You won't believe how easy the interactive program is. Soon the sentences get a little bigger, and before you know it, you're having simulated conversations voiced by native speakers. And because Babbel is crafted by language experts and uses the spaced repetition method, in just 10 to 15 minutes a day, you'll be speaking the language of your choice with real confidence. With Babbel, you can speak a language. Just text EXPLORE to 64,000 and start your first lesson in the language of your choice for free. Download the Babbel app or text EXPLORE to 64,000 and try it for free. Text EXPLORE to 64,000.
Just because you travel doesn't mean you can't keep your routine. The more obstacles travel puts between us and our well-being, the more we strive to move well. At Westin Hotels and Resorts, we're focused on empowering your well-being. With our running maps and gear lending program in partnership with New Balance, you can run like a local as you do in Watford. Don't leave your well-being behind. We give you the choice to get up or to rise. Search Westin online to find out more. Westin, let's rise.
'Tis the season to be hunched over your laptop. Not on our watch. In real life, you can fill your senses and your baskets. Feel all the sights, sounds, lols, and OMGs. Wear laughing emojis on actual smiley faces. Batteries running low. Take the kids to Santa's grotto. In real life, you can find just the right present using the most advanced search engine in the world. Your eyes. We can't in real life. Brent Cross, London. Free parking for all sleighs and cars.
'Twas the month before Christmas, and all across Gold were a stocking full of reasons to stay out of the cold. Mrs. Brown and her boys, their old family's Christmas tree, dinner ladies, Blackadder and the Vicar of Dibley.
Isn't that nice?
Come Morecambe, now Wise, now Delboy and Rodney, oh Gavin, oh Stacey and Mr. Carnes.
Oh, Gordon!
From the dawn of the day to the end of the eve, we've more Christmas shows than you would believe.
Lovely jubbly.
On the Gold TV channel, just this to remember, it's Christmas specials every day, all this December.
You know it's out there somewhere, but you just keep missing out. I'm talking about your dream job. Now it's easier to find and land your next role with the LinkedIn app. Build connections, keep in touch, and be the first to hear about new jobs. LinkedIn has more openings than applicants. And sometimes all it takes is one LinkedIn connection to land the job that's right for you. Don't miss out. Get your next big break and find the job meant for you. Download the free
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 1061 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119 and around the globe. The Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Surveillance.
Good morning, I'm Karen Moscow, along with Tom Keene and Paul Sweeney, and the opening bell is brought to you by SEI, with an operating platform designed to support all major asset classes, diverse strategies, and investment vehicles. SEI is redefining wealth management. Learn more at SEIC.com/IMS. And the S&P 500 higher at the open, up 0.1% or 3 points at 3195. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.1% or 26 points at 28,291. And the Nasdaq's up almost 0.2% or 13 points at 8837. 10-year Treasury down 4/30 seconds, yield 1.89%. The yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down 0.7% or 41 cents at $60.53 a barrel. COMEX gold is down 0.1% on $1.90 to $14.7870 an ounce. The euro 1.1122 against the dollar. The yen at 109.55. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thanks so much. He's an interesting guy. We're going to talk to Chanel Bassick here about a number of topics, our chief financial correspondent. And one of them would be on the wisdom of Mr. Druckenmiller. Let's listen to Stanley Druckenmiller on negative interest rates.
We have negative real rates everywhere and negative absolute rates a lot of places. So with that kind of unprecedented monetary stimulus relative to the circumstances, it's hard to have anything other than a constructive view on the market's risk and the economy intermediate term. So that's what I have.
Stan Druckenmiller, out of Pittsburgh, Duquesne Capital, and of course, all of his work over the years. And Chanel, what was so interesting about a guy who did well in the hedge fund game, particularly 2008, is he had the courage to shut down in 2010. In hindsight, was that a smart move? I mean, was he out front of everybody else going, this has become no fun?
Short story is yes. His interview today with Eric Schatzker was interesting because one of the other things he said is that he's become a coward since closing his hedge fund. And guess what? He's speaking to the feelings of everybody on Wall Street that's managing a macro fund these days. What happened back then was investors really rewarded big risk-taking. That doesn't exist anymore. People want steady, constant returns.
What kind of year is it for hedge funds?
It's not great. I mean, they're not outperforming the market by any means.
It's a blended basis. They're not
right. But you know what? With volatility coming back, people like the idea of having them as a diversifier. There are still funds.
Listen to you. What are you selling funds?
You know, the thing about it is, and it took a little convincing, but people are raising real money. That's the thing.
I'm shocked that money, hedge funds can still raise.
What is real money versus unreal money?
Well, people are raising like tens of billions of dollars in the hedge fund industry. Exodus Point, D1, Jack Woodruff's in the market.
Are these big macro funds like Druckenmiller was famous for and others, or are they more specialized?
They're more specialized. We're seeing a lot of multi-strat funds, a lot of credit focused. But that's what I was saying. If you're in the macro game, what you're doing here is you're taking these timid bets, like Stan Druckenmiller is taking, with a lot of leverage.
Now, I had an email back and forth today with someone younger, and they said, well, now's a fun season. And Mr. Sweeney and I will make it clear that if you're on Global Wall Street, now is the most stressful time of year.
Exactly.
People don't understand this.
Completely focused on your bonus.
Bonus. What do I need to do to fix this? Boy, I better be taken care of. And Paul, that huge deal of like, wait, we got rationalizations.
Yeah.
What's the sweat factor right now in the Global Wall Street scene?
It's not even just about bonus. It's about keeping jobs.
Exactly.
And so at Morgan Stanley, we've seen a lot of retirements here and there, and then all of a sudden a big announcement of a 2% reduction in the workforce. So bonuses down across the whole board, deeper in some places like Deutsche Bank, but also who sticks around into next year. I think that there's a bit of a question on what's getting cut and what's not.
What's the deal outlook for next year? We had some mid-market M&A banker in yesterday, and she was kind of going through some of the details. 2019 was on par with 2018. What's the expectation for 2020 now that maybe we're going to have some kind of trade deal?
People like the middle market because there's so much private equity dry powder out there. So the middle market, let's separate completely. But the big ticket deals, I think, some of them have really bounced back. What strikes me is a lot of these deals are in healthcare and technology, which Elizabeth Warren is looking straight at. And so they do carry a lot of regulatory risk.
How much of your world then, with all these fancy PE and arbitrage and LBOs, or they don't call them LBOs anymore, do they?
I don't know.
The money doesn't cost anything. So.
Barbarians at the game.
I guess, yeah, exactly. Okay, all that's great, but it's all about scale, isn't it? I mean, every transaction is about the revenue's not there, so...
The big question I have is in 3 years from now, after we see all these companies pursuing all these deals because growth is slowing, are these deals going to be the silver bullet for corporate America for them to revive the growth that the bankers are telling them that they will get from these deals?
Is there any evidence of that? And the answer is no.
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 Tom, can we keep this? Am I allowed to talk about Deutsche Bank, or are we going to keep this a Deutsche Bank free day?
I wanted to go there.
Okay.
No.
Deutsche Bank, I saw some news out, maybe closing a couple hundred branches, maybe. That means people might lose their jobs in Germany. Is this even allowed?
Who I love more than anybody else in this building lately is Allison Williams, our PI analyst.
She's so cynical.
She's so good, and she's been calling it from day one since the restructuring plan was announced, where they gave us the job cut figures, but they didn't say where they were coming from, that a lot of this could come from the retail division of Deutsche Bank. And then guess what? Not only are we seeing potential job cuts in that region, we're also seeing the interest rate situation in Europe compound Deutsche Bank's problems a little more. And so they're leaning back on that investment bank that they had also been trimming.
So what's Deutsche Bank look like 12 months from now?
Well, I really love January because I'm the nerd that loves fourth quarter results.
So late January, you'll really start to see how the strategy shapes up.
A lot of these banks, Deutsche Bank, UBS, investors are quarter by quarter watching performance very, very closely.
Is wealth management still the vogue? I mean, it seems to be every conversation ends with we're getting into wealth management or we're going to do more there.
Yes. The short answer is yes, because wealthier individuals are doing more deals. They're borrowing more. They're taking out loans for many homes and around the world. So yes. However, if you're making less than $5 million, or if you have less than $5 million in assets, you can be sure that you'll be talking to a robot these days.
Oh, that big a number? No, seriously, that big a number, 5 million?
Yeah. I mean, you have to be very wealthy to matter in this world these days.
Well, do the math quick, Paul. 5 million, 1% is 50,000. 5 million, right? 10% is 500,000. 1% is 50,000.
Right.
So on an account like that, let's say they make 80 beeps, that's something like $40,000. And that's not good enough as a starting entry fee.
Can't believe it, but yeah. I mean, the thing is, yes, you're wealthy, but the thing is, every bank is really going. Think about it. Even the deal that we saw today with Fiat Chrysler, who is behind that? An Italian billionaire, right? People forget that the biggest companies in the world these days have very wealthy individuals behind them, and those are the people that are driving the deals.
Yeah, but that circles back to scale. I mean, I took a quick look at the financials for Peugeot and Fiat, and they're 5-cent businesses, 11% EBITDA, 400,000 combined employees. You cut costs.
And now they're the fourth largest automaker globally, which is amazing. You think about those were niche brands 10 years ago.
Sonali Bastick, thank you so much. Chief Financial Correspondent, Bloomberg Television, Radio, sort of a blur of events there in the stress-free holiday season.
Exactly.
How about that March vacation?
It's interesting. What's Deutsche Bank going to be in a year? That's a great question. I just don't know if it's going to be.
Serious question.
I don't know if from a capital markets perspective, how much are they going to get out of equities, for example? How would you even do that? I don't know.
And we don't know really their bond business in London and New York, and particularly in London. I mean, what's it going to be? As Sonali said, you got to wait till end of January to get some visibility. We have green visibility. Dow up 40 points. This is Bloomberg. Good morning.
Let's get national headlines right now with Michael Barr. Michael.
Paul, Tom, thank you very much. A long day is expected on Capitol Hill today, with the House of Representatives poised to debate impeachment for hours before a final vote is expected this evening on 2 articles of impeachment against President Trump. President Trump is poised to become the 3rd president impeached. The vote is expected to break almost entirely along party lines. Democratic Representative Pramila Jayapal of Washington.
Today, you will see all of us as Democrats approaching the gravity of the moment with the seriousness that it deserves. You will see us quoting the facts on the floor. You will see us sticking to the oath that we swore ourselves to.
Not a single Republican member is expected to vote in favor of impeachment. It comes as the president heads to Michigan for a campaign rally today. Meanwhile, according to one survey, President Trump's approval rating is now the highest since April. According to a Gallup poll, it rose from 43 to 45%. His disapproval rating fell from 54 to 51%. The poll was conducted between December 2nd through the 15th. Congress is moving ahead with legislation that would raise the age to buy tobacco and vaping products from 18 to 21. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Michael Barr. This is Bloomberg Talk.
Michael Barr, thanks so much. 28,303, the Dow. 3,200, just below there for SPX 500. This is Bloomberg.
25 years ago, NJIT graduate Dick Sweeney co-founded Keurig Green Mountain, a company whose incredible innovations changed the way the world brews a cup of coffee. Today, he lectures widely on business leadership and is a strong advocate for NJIT's work to combine business education with the power of STEM.
NJIT is definitely fostering innovative thinking for budding entrepreneurs simply because that's the world we live in. NJIT is producing students that have been trained, educated, and given the business acumen to be a contributor to a company. The distinct mission is to develop great STEM scholars. The attributes I've always looked for in team members are heart, smarts, guts, and luck. So we want people with passion, intelligence, courage, and never discount luck. The student coming out of NJIT has experienced all of that.
NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology. Learn more at njit.edu.
Asset managers who seize change to launch new strategies, add distribution channels, or exploit new technology to re-engineer the investor experience are often rewarded. However, in an industry paralyzed with complexity, few act with agility or decisively. Few run their businesses strategically, yet the most competitive managers in the market know with the right partner and a flexible operating system, you can. Go boldly toward change with SEI Investment Manager Services.
I'm Steve Meyer, president of SEI's Investment Manager Services. At SEI, right. We understand the emerging forces that will define success for asset managers and what firms will need to compete tomorrow. That's why we continually optimize SEI's global operating platform. If your business requires greater agility, our advanced technology, integrated best-in-class systems, and multi-asset expertise can be your catalyst for business transformation.
With SEI Investment Manager Services, you lead the charge in a competitive marketplace. Learn more at SEIC.com/C.
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
When it comes to music, I've heard it all. Pink Floyd, Sean Paul, Slipknot. But in the Witch Test Lab, hearing isn't enough. When we test headphones, we really listen. Not just to the music, but to the stuff that gets in the way. The traffic, the chatter, all that. Mind the gap. We simulate the loudest commute to find you the headphones that cancel out the noise. So you know we're only recommending the best.
Which tests harder so you can buy smarter. Visit which.co.uk.
Do you have a favorite true crime podcast this year? Here's a few of ours. On the latest season of Uncover, journalist Michelle Shepard investigates the unsolved case of a missing Toronto teen that has haunted her for 20 years.
Toronto police are continuing a desperate search for a missing...
And on Haunting Warhead, host Damon Fairless exposes the darkest, most shocking corners of the internet and the criminals who lurk in the shadows.
How do you take down a criminal network hidden in the shadows?
Search True Crime on TuneIn to discover these and more life thrillers.
With 2020 on the horizon, TuneIn continues looking back at the stories that shaped the 2010s.
In 2012, Black Lives Matter is born after the killing of an unarmed 17-year-old Trayvon Martin. In 2015, the European refugee crisis sees an unprecedented number of asylum seekers entering the EU after fleeing conflict regions like Syria. And in 2017, the Me Too movement inspires a new wave of social justice.
Search news on TuneIn to be listening when the next decade's big headlines break.
Cutting for the net, scores! On the goal line, Marchand scores!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
And tucks it home!
And with this team, it's really fun to be a part of a team like that.
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium. From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today. Powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in over 120 countries. This is Bloomberg Radio. Now, a global news update.
President Donald Trump is on the cusp of being impeached by the House with a historic debate set to begin on charges he abused his power and obstructed Congress. The president has communicated through tweets his thoughts on the process.
President Trump tweeting just before midnight, "They want to impeach me? I'm not worried. A very successful president of the United States who has done nothing wrong. These people are crazy."
The House at this hour is taking up procedural matters. Representative Steny Hoyer is the House Majority Leader. He was asked in Statutory Hall minutes ago about Democrats' plans to impeach the president.
We feel very strongly that we are compelled by our duty to our oath and the Constitution and our democracy to act today when we have found that the President of the United States has abused his power.
Meantime, President Trump is holding a campaign rally tonight in Battle Creek, Michigan. I'm John Trout.
Deep understanding in record time.
$2 billion, not exactly what they were going for.
They're going to be profitable.
Bloomberg Business Week, weekday afternoons at 2 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio. Bloomberg, the world is listening. Markets, headlines, and breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
And I'm Karen Moscow. This update brought to you by Inovalon, a leading provider of cloud-based platforms empowering data-driven healthcare for insurance companies, physicians, pharmacy, and pharmaceutical companies. Inovalon data has a story to tell, and Inovalon gives it a voice. U.S. stocks and European shares are gaining as investors digest a flurry of corporate news amid a lull in trade war headlines. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P 500 up 0.1%, or about 4 points at 3196. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up 0.1%, or 38 points to 28,305. And the Nasdaq up 0.2%, or 15 points to 8838. 10-year Treasury down 5/32, yield 1.89%. Yield on the 2-year 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil is down almost 0.8%, or 47 cents at $60.47 a barrel. COMEX gold down less than 0.1%, down $1 to $14.79.50 an ounce. The euro 1.1123 against the dollar. The British pound also moving lower against the dollar at 1.3082, and the yen is at 109.54. We are watching shares of FedEx this morning down 8.7% after it cut its forecast. And New York Life Insurance agreed to buy a Cigna business that sells life and disability insurance through employers for $6.3 billion in cash. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Tom and Paul.
Karen, thank you so much. It is easy with 30/30 hindsight to look back and understand that there was a distinction between Bear Stearns and Lehman. At the time, I'm not sure we knew that. There have been a series of interviews with Secretary Paulson over the years, and at this point, an important update is needed. David Rubenstein has provided that with his wonderful peer-to-peer conversations, this time with Hank Paulson. Let us listen in as Secretary Paulson and Mr. Rubenstein discuss the Lehman moment.
So Lehman was on the verge of going bankrupt, and you did not have at that time the authority to save Lehman. I know everybody's asked you about that since then, but in hindsight, is there anything you could have done differently with respect to Lehman?
Boy, I'll tell you, I don't think there was. We tried everything we could to get a buyer. Lehman was a bigger problem even than Bear Stearns because they were insolvent. There was a big capital hole. There was no way that a loan was going to solve the problem. It was going to take capital or a loan guarantee.
Okay, and ultimately the banking system came back and the financial system came back. But as you look at the system today, could something like that happen again with the legislation we now have? Are we better able to protect against something like that?
First of all, our financial system is much stronger than it was. The banks are better capitalized. It's much less likely to start in the U.S. There's less dry tinder to start a fire. But, and I hate to say this, but we have less authorities today than we had then. And the number one problem we had then, the number one problem by far, was we had a financial system that had outgrown our regulatory system. Our regulatory system and authorities had put in place after the Great Depression when there was a run on banks, and we had a situation where 60% of the credit was going outside of the banking system.
The delicate question from David Rubenstein to Hank Paulson about never again. Joining us now, David Rubenstein, of course, for the Carlyle Group, and a huge success for Bloomberg has been the David Rubenstein Show peer-to-peer conversations, this time with the former secretary. David, what'd you learn about the age-old question, it could happen again, couldn't it?
What can always happen again? You know, the most dangerous words in the investment world is this time is different or something bad can't happen again. So I think that it's less likely we'll have a run like we did last time in the near future because, as Hank Paulson said, the banks are better capitalized. On the other hand, the legislation that went through, the Dodd-Frank legislation, while it makes a lot of improvements, it really does want to make certain that we are not bailing out shareholders, and as a result, I think it's harder to do bailouts perhaps in many ways than it would have been before.
You were a student of this, and Hank Paulson became a student in the crucible of it all as well. How shadowy are we now? You know, the shadows of our shadow banking different than they were 14 years ago?
Yes, a lot of lending that now occurs from groups that are unregulated. So there are a lot of private equity firms, hedge funds, other organizations that are set up that are not regulated by regulators that regulate the banks, and therefore there is that potential challenge. I don't think it's a big immediate problem, but it's something that would have to be monitored. I think with Hank Paulson, though, when you hear him talk, what you're really hearing is one of the more impressive secretaries of Treasury we've had in the last 50 years or so, because he came from Goldman Sachs. He had some government experience, but not at the level of being Secretary of Treasury. He didn't think it was going to be a serious problem when he took the job because he only had 2 years left in the Bush administration, and it turned out we had the worst financial crisis since the Great Depression. He and Ben Bernanke and Tim Geithner really did a heroic job, I think, in helping to keep the American financial system alive, and clearly the TARP legislation helped. But when you go back and look at what happened, it's hard to believe how serious the problem was, and for a while, Congress was not willing to do anything about it.
Yeah, David, having lived through that financial crisis and then read several accounts of it since then, what just struck me was how these guys were just really winging it weekend to weekend, which bank was going to fail on a Friday, and we had 2 days to fix it and get the markets open on Monday. That just seemed to happen over and over again. Looking back, does Hank feel like they got it basically as right as they could?
I think he would say, and the others who were involved would say, we did as well as we could. It wasn't perfect. We made some mistakes. I think people may forget this, but the initial TARP legislation was defeated by the House of Representatives, and that was a really cataclysmic thing because without the TARP legislation, it wasn't clear what would have happened. I think Hank's view is that they did as good a job as they could have done. There were some mistakes they would probably have preferred not to have made, but generally I think historians have given them a pretty good mark for what they did.
And David, I know you recounted Mr. Paulson's career, Goldman Sachs, as you mentioned, coming out of the Chicago office and then being the Secretary Treasury. What is Mr. Paulson focused on these days?
Very interesting. Most former secretaries of Treasury, if they are still want to be active in the business world, will go back into the business world and make money. Nothing wrong with making money, but that's what most of them do. He's decided not to do that. He's really focused on environmental causes. He cares a great deal about the environment. He's a passionate environmentalist, and that's what his major focuses is. And the other is on improving U.S.-China relationships. He's been to China probably 150 times in his life, and he is extremely well respected there. I think Henry Kissinger has been the most prominent, well-respected American in China for a long time. I think Hank Paulson is now the next generation of people who have that kind of esteem in China, and he's just unbelievably well-regarded there.
Is he a Xi optimist?
Well, he and I did meet with Xi Jinping at a recent Bloomberg conference that was held in China.
How do you get that plug in, David? Thank you.
It was clear. It was clear that Xi Jinping and the other senior Chinese leaders really do respect Hank Paulson. The two most important people speaking at that meeting were Henry Kissinger and Hank Paulson. Hank Paulson, though, has decided not to try to make money off his China relationship, which is, it's very admirable. He could, is obviously, given his contacts there, do a lot of business there or do a lot of things with Chinese companies in the United States. Absolutely none of that. He only cares about improving the U.S.-China relationship and focuses a lot on the environmental concerns that he has about what's going on in China.
David, thank you so much. David Rubenstein with us. It is the David Rubenstein Show, peer-to-peer conversations. You can see that on Bloomberg Television, hear it on Bloomberg Radio as well. Conversation with Henry Paulson, 5 a.m. Eastern Time, Wednesday, December 18th. No, that's wrong. We'll get those times for you.
I think it's tonight, Wednesday, 9 p.m. New York time. 9 p.m. New York time, peer-to-peer conversations.
My fault there as well. We're up 28, and I'm sorry. This is what happens in the holidays. Things get slower. Yep. And the natural. Am I right? The natural inclination is a bid.
I think so, and I think people also are just kind of, if you've given year we've had so far, Tom, I think a lot of people are just going to be on the sidelines, taking their gains and not putting any of their book at risk. And
window dressing, is it legit concept?
That's absolutely it.
Buy some Apple. We got to show we own it.
You got to show you own some Apple. Got to own some Amazon. Got to own some Alphabet. And you got to own some of those banks.
Yeah, but
the banks have had a heck of a year.
They've had a heck of a year. I'll go with the bank idea, but that's a distinction. Apple up. Yeah. Amazon not.
That's interesting. Exactly. And I think the some of the regulatory issues kind of overhanging Amazon much more than they are Apple. I mean, people look at Jeff Bezos and the control or the presence that they have in the e-commerce space, the growing presence that they have in the cloud that we were just talking about before. They understand the cloud, and I think some people are a little bit uncomfortable with that. So if there's going to be a regulatory overhang for these tech names, Amazon's squarely underneath that overhang.
This is where one daughter texts you and your spouse and says, the middle child wants blah, blah, blah from J. Crew. And so I immediately used the phone and I called up Jeff Bezos and said, can you get it to me soon? And I did that last night. And then
it'll probably be there when you get home?
No, it's worse. Mrs. Keene did the same thing this morning.
Okay.
So there'll be many presents under the tree for the middle child.
Good.
Because Jeff Bezos makes it so darn easy.
It's literally
to do this
the
stuff.
one click. The one click.
I'm not doing 1 click, but 3 clicks is a lot different than trudging around looking for the stuff.
Yeah, 1 click sets in motion this logistical enterprise and financial billing enterprise. You just can't even conceive of it 10 years ago.
No, we will see. Interesting. There's a lot of economic data tomorrow and into Friday as well. Green on the screen up 33. 28,300 on the Dow. Wow. We are produced by Richard Truman. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. Stocks are inching to more new record highs as investors assess a flurry of corporate news amid a lull in trade war headlines. Shares of General Mills are moving higher. The company reported earnings in the latest quarter that beat analyst estimates. Net sales missed, but the Minneapolis-based food maker posted sales in its Blue Buffalo pet food unit that surged. They were up 16%.
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
Christmas. A time for celebrating, unwrapping, and unwinding. Capture every moment with an epic iPhone 6S with a 12-megapixel camera. Now only $12.99 a month from Tesco Mobile, saving you £72. It's just one of the ways we're celebrating 100 years of great value. Go in store or search Tesco Mobile. Tesco Mobile. Every little helps.
Saving £2 per month over 36 months was £14.99. 36-month credit and rolling monthly usage agreements required. Subject to status. Terms apply. See tescomobile.com/terms.
Want to hear about the latest and greatest things to listen to on TuneIn? For reminders of the biggest live sports games, debates, and breaking news stories, follow @TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to stay connected with the audio that matters to you.
World 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, on the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is Bloomberg Radio. This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney.
Where's your views on the municipal bond landscape?
The market does not like uncertainty, does not react well to uncertainty.
There's a whole lot of optimism around the valuation of Uber.
What is Ford saying about the self-driving car?
Breaking market news and insight from Bloomberg experts.
Maybe we're getting hooked on debt and low interest rates.
The black hole called power could be a bigger black hole.
A toxic brew of slower revenue growth.
There is now this belief that Amazon maybe can do anything.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Good Wednesday morning from New York City to our worldwide audience. It is a slow open here to the market. Not much going. A little bit of green on the screen. Coming up, we're going to talk to Mike Mullaney of Boston Partners and get his thoughts on investing as we look ahead to 2020. Plus, we're going to take a look at the challenging financial situation for small private colleges in the U.S. But first, let's go to Karen Moscow of Bloomberg News for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Karen.
All right, Paul, thank you. And yeah, we have a bit of a lull in those trade war headlines, and the S&P 500 is a little change as a result. We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg. The S&P is at 3192. The Dow Jones Industrial Average up less than 0.1%, up 20 points at 28,287. And the NASDAQ little changed, up 1 to 88.24. 10-year Treasury down 8/30 seconds, yield 1.90%. And the yield on the 2-year is at 1.63%. NYMEX crude oil down 0.9% or 52 cents at $60.42 a barrel. COMEX gold down 0.2% or $2.20 at $14.78.40 an ounce. The pound lower against the dollar at 1.3072, the euro 1.1117, and the yen 109.56. And that's a Bloomberg Business Flash. Paul and Lisa.
Thank you so much, Karen. Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Adipar. Adipar's portfolio reporting and insights platform is trusted by thousands of wealth advisors from family offices, RIAs, and large financial institutions. Learn more at addepar.com. We are looking at markets that are, this is an exciting day. Let's just put it that way.
It's a churning market.
I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stock Center is here.
Somnambulant.
Somnambulant. Thank you. That's the word I'm looking for.
I have no idea.
But I love it, and I was trying to say I couldn't get it out this morning. Definitely a year-end feel today as we look at the churn in markets, but underneath some really interesting moves, Dave.
Right. I mean, the one that jumps out is FedEx, no question. I mean, the shares are down more than 9%. And, it wouldn't take much to get the second 10% plus drop in a row after earnings because, you look back to September, the shares fell then too. Similar story, earnings and revenue coming up short of analyst projections in a Bloomberg survey. So, it really does look like, among other things, that their decision to drop Amazon.com or vice versa, depending on how you want to look at it, is just taking its toll, at least for the moment. And people just don't like what they're seeing, across the business. It's not just, Amazon. I mean, there's more to it than that. But
they also called out, I guess, some slowing global trade impacting some of their international business. Right. But, I look at United Parcel Service, UPS, that stock's up 21% year-to-date versus an 8% decline for FedEx. I'm wondering, as I think about the FedEx business model, it seems like it's a fixed-cost business model, so I need to push as much volume through that system as I can. And if that's the case, why would I ever, not want to do business with arguably one of the biggest shippers in the world?
Well, the challenge is that, the more Amazon handles its own packages, the more FedEx has seen Amazon as a competitor. Yep. So, you had those two contracts lapse this year, first with the main unit FedEx Express in June and then FedEx Ground in August. So, put it all together and, there's certainly an issue for FedEx. I mean, when you have Amazon telling its third-party shippers, other retailers selling through its site that they can't use FedEx. I mean, it's an issue.
Yeah, it's an issue. And we're going to be talking more about FedEx next hour with Dell, president of SJ Consulting. I am curious, though, there's sort of a paradox here. You think that in the age of e-commerce, shipping companies would be doing phenomenally well, and yet the e-commerce boom has actually been difficult for some of these shipping companies. Can you sort of square that circle?
Well, the challenge is if you're doing more business, you have to have more places to do business. You have to have more people to handle the business. I mean, we've certainly seen issues in the past in the holiday shopping season, which is right where we are now. So that will be something to watch over the next couple of weeks. But, that's the challenge. And if the business isn't quite there the way that the company might have expected when they brought up all these workers and, maybe added some facilities, then you see those costs really kind of weighing on the results. And, arguably that's what's happening at FedEx.
And I noticed went on a road trip a few weeks ago, drove down to Baltimore. It's the first time I've actually driven a long distance in several years, and I was shocked by how many Amazon trucks were on the highways. I mean, they were all over the place. It's like, I guess that's just just exhibits how much they're really getting into the logistics part of the business.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they've leased planes from this company called Atlas Air Worldwide as part of that. Adding their own trucks, bringing in a lot of independent contractors to handle package deliveries for them. So, they're kind of building around the likes of FedEx and UPS in the sense that, they want to be able to control their own destiny and, more to the point, control their costs.
Yeah. Right now, just to look at the lack of action in markets, other than FedEx, is it just sleepy right now? Basically, everybody has already gone away for the vacation.
I told Tom he can take the rest of the year off, Because, I mean, what's going to happen?
No, he can't. No, he can't. That's absolutely not acceptable. No, I don't want to have to fill all his schedule.
Exactly.
There are a few odds and ends we should point out in terms of earnings beyond FedEx. And actually, by the time you get to Friday will be the last day of the decade, actually, for any reports by S&P 500 companies. We have CarMax due on Friday and possibly Carnival, the cruise line owner, as well. So, you have those sort of reactions. The one that jumps out is a smaller company, nonetheless, in the S&P 500, and one you could argue that is a broader sort of economic indicator like FedEx. It's the uniform rental company Cintas. And, their results went over pretty well. We're talking about the fiscal second quarter, earnings beating projections by the most in 9 quarters, revenue topping estimates. They raised their annual sales forecast. You put that all together, you got Cintas shares up about 4.5%.
It's interesting. We had Eric Schatzker, Bloomberg Television, had an interview this morning with Stanley Druckenmiller, who is embracing risk again, but timidly. So it's interesting to see.
But that's been the theme. I mean, honestly, there was a credit investor survey out of Bank of America that was done out of Europe, and it basically showed this barbell strategy is the most popular, buying high yield and going long cash. But this has been sort of the trade for a long time, not fully embracing the rally in risk assets, and yet risk assets have continued to do well. And I just have to wonder, is that paranoia, is that caution what's prolonging the rally, and that sort of tension? The second you see that go out of the market, that's when the alarm bells should start to go off, right? I mean, that's sort of the idea here.
Yeah.
It's interesting. He said, Druckenmiller said, I'm just too conservative in my old age. I was well positioned, but very timidly. So that sounds kind of like what you're talking about.
Yeah, and obviously the idea of people really get enthusiastic again. I mean, you look at that as a contrary indicator. And the story of 10 plus years of a bull market is that you haven't seen a whole lot of that kind of enthusiasm.
Although right now what you are seeing is in the high yield bond universe, you're seeing junk bond yields fall to the lowest since 2014. And you're not seeing the same kind of drop in investment grade credit. Basically, the rally is bigger in high yield right now in the riskier debt, even though you are seeing pockets of distress within that. And even as you have Fitch coming out this morning, Fitch Ratings, and saying that they do expect this sort of highly indebted, low growth environment to persist next year, posing some challenges to some of these companies. Still, people absolutely favoring risk because that's what's paid.
And, Tom Keene just pointed out to me this morning, which was interesting. Today, a year ago today was when the market started to really roll over.
Oh, God. He's obsessed with that.
I know.
The sort of, what is it? Like his sort of watch,
yes, he's got his little clock up there for the sell-off from last quarter. But
that was last year.
Yes,
I mean, absolutely. Last year, very much the exception. I mean, I saw a chart about LPL Financial going back to 1950, looking at the S&P 500, and you see that it picks up in the second half of December. And I suppose that angle would be even higher were it not for last year.
Yep. Dave Wilson, before we let you go, just assignment for tomorrow. I want your favorite chart of the year. Dave Wilson, Bloomberg Stocks editor, joining us here. Right now, let's head to our Night Network studios in Washington, D.C. Amy Morris with World and National Headlines. Amy.
All right, thank you, Lisa. The House of Representatives, as you know, began its consideration of articles of impeachment against President Trump. And this is not going to be smooth sailing. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman joining us now. He's got a live report for us from Capitol Hill. Irv.
Amy, Republicans began the morning with a motion by Congressman Andy Biggs.
So we can stop wasting America's time on impeachment, I move that the House do now adjourn.
It took a half hour for members to straggle in and vote to continue the session.
I rise to a question of the privilege of the House and send to the desk a privileged resolution.
Republican leader Kevin McCarthy introducing a resolution condemning the chairman of the two investigating committees for decisions that were, he said, unfair to the minority party. That required another recorded vote to defeat the resolution. The House has now been in session for more than an hour and has just begun to discuss rules of procedure, calling for a scheduled 6 hours of debate on impeachment. And Republican Whip Steve Scalise raised objections to those rules. Amy?
All right, thank you, Irv. This is definitely going to take quite some time today. Meanwhile, the House passed two giant spending bills providing $1.4 trillion to fund the government through September. That will help avoid a government shutdown. Now, these bills are headed to the Senate where they are expected to pass, including a boost in defense spending, a pay raise for troops and civilian federal workers, money to secure the 2020 election, money for the census, and another $25 million for gun violence research. The president has to sign these bills into law before midnight Friday night. The Senate is expected expected to approve this perhaps as early as tomorrow. Global news 24 hours a day on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
We live in an era where research, production, and decisions are no longer made for just one place.
If the U.S. and China are saying good things, the markets can go about their business.
Bloomberg Daybreak Asia.
Are you seeing a lot more buying power on the part of younger people in China?
Financial news made in Asia for use everywhere.
Can we expect more opening of the Chinese onshore bond markets?
Tonight at 6 Eastern on Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business app, and BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
To buy your home, you became a house-hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
What if you could keep the top economic experts in a conference room next to your office without having to feed them?
Do we need better optics? Do we need some substance?
Do CEOs care about ESG?
We have seen quite a lot of stimulus pumped into the system already.
It's the biggest warning yet about the financial risks of climate change.
Now there are more ways to hear us. Bloomberg Radio, the Bloomberg Business, Radio.com, and iHeartRadio apps, and at BloombergRadio.com. Bloomberg, the world is listening.
Hi, everyone. Al Roker here. As a guy with his own catchphrase, I appreciate that after 75 years, Smokey's only said,
"Only you can prevent wildfires."
But I'm filling in because there's a lot more to report. Like when it's dry or windy. Be careful burning yard waste, because wildfires can even start in your neck of the woods. Go to SmokeyBear.com to learn more about wildfire prevention. Brought to you by the U.S. Forest Service, your state forester, and the Ad Council.
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
For the independent bookseller who found you that first edition.
For the baker who brings the smell of freshly baked breads to your door.
And for the barista who never needs to ask your name.
We've all got a part to play.
Every little tap keeps your high street alive.
And helps your communities thrive.
So if you love where you live, shop small.
Shopping on your local high street can make a big difference. Shop small. Only by American Express.
The extraordinary sale is now on at Bicester Village, with up to 60% off the recommended retail price at participating boutiques until the 24th of December. Enjoy luxury for less at Emma Bridgewater, The White Company, Molton Brown, The Creuset, and many more. With free parking, all-day festive dining, and restaurants open late, it's the perfect time to do your Christmas shopping. The extraordinary sale at Bicester Village.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
Pascal gobbles up the rebound and slams it down.
Catch your favorite NBA team right here on TuneIn.
A step back deep three is up and in.
Search NBA on TuneIn and hear all the action. The NBA lives on TuneIn.
Want to know a quick, easy way to see if your favorite podcasts have a new episode available? Just go to the home screen on your TuneIn app and see the latest editions under the Your New Episode section. Happy listening.
When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and tune in on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Hey, NFL fan, can't watch the game? Can't be there? No biggie. With your TuneIn Premium membership, you already have an all-access pass to every team and every game in the league. Amazing, right?
Steps up, floats it towards, at the goal line, it's intercepted!
Listen live as the action unfolds or on demand when you can. Anytime, anywhere, all season long.
Right side, it is caught. It is in for the right side for the touchdown to Keenan.
Search NFL today.
Upgrade to TuneIn Premium and get over 45 commercial-free music stations. You'll also get live commercial-free news, plus live play-by-play games from NFL, MLB, NBA, and NHL. Visit TuneIn.com/premium to upgrade.
And breaking news 24 hours a day at Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, and on Quick Take by Bloomberg. This is a Bloomberg Business Flash.
Stocks in the U.S. and in Europe have edged higher as investors digest a bunch of corporate news and a lull in trade war headlines. Treasury slipped and the British pound is weaker. We look at the numbers every 15 minutes throughout the trading day here on Bloomberg Radio. The S&P 500 is up just about 0.1% up 2. The Dow's up 0.1% up 31. And the Nasdaq's up 0.1% up 7. 10-year is down 6/30 seconds. The yield is 1.90%. West Texas Intermediate crude oil is down 0.9% at $60.41 a barrel, with COMEX gold down 0.1% at $14.7920 an ounce. The dollar yen 109.56. The euro is $1.1120, and the British pound $1.3068. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by New Jersey Institute of Technology, designated an Innovation and Economic Prosperity University for its economic engagement. More at njit.edu. Well, heading into 2020, there is a consensus of sorts starting to form. One is that Europe will outperform the U.S. Another is that the U.S. dollar will weaken and actually give some sort of lift to emerging markets. Paul Sweeney is shaking his head. You also have this idea that you're going to have pretty good returns for risk assets, perhaps a 6 to 10% return on the S&P 500. Nothing like this year, but pretty good. Joining us now to figure out if that consensus is right is Mike Mullaney. He's Director of Global Markets Research at Boston Partners with nearly $87 billion under management. Mike, where do you think the consensus is right and where do you think it's wrong?
You know, I feel uncomfortable because we're pretty much on consensus with each one of those topics that you just mentioned right now, and that makes me somewhat uneasy. Where you could be wrong, could be obviously everyone is anticipating a rebound in global GDP activity, and maybe it's not quite as robust as some of the people have forecasted. So that's one area that could put a little bit curtailment on some of the optimism that's out there right now. But in general, we're relatively comfortable with what consensus is basically saying right now as far as both GDP growth, earnings growth, and growth worldwide, as both as far as economies and stock markets.
All right, Mike. So as I think about 2020, I'm thinking about our good friend Tom Keene. He was in his triple leverage cash fund for 2019. He's looking to put some money to work in 2020. Do we tell him to go riskier on the spectrum, stick with the tech stocks that have been ripping, or do I go try to find some value, maybe small to mid caps?
Well, I think it's, value has done well basically for the this quarter's not been bad. Starting in September, value started to get a little bit of a bid, as did cyclicals. And I think that still has room to run. The backdrop is favorable, as we've mentioned. We've had resolution on 4 different areas: trade, Brexit, the budget now, and USMCA seems like it's going to be passed within a short period of time as well as the Fed being kind of at our back right now as far as providing support based upon what Chairman Powell said last week. So from a risk standpoint, it seems to be once again, more of a risk-on environment. If you risk-on environment, I would be a little bit barbelled. Tech is still a good place to be, even though it's expensive in general, but it's expensive for all the right reasons because the performance has just been outstanding from a fundamental standpoint within that sector. But you may want to balance that off with some value plays. And I think, once again, where there's room to run, probably in finance, probably still in banks. If you feel that we're going to go into a stronger global economic environment and a stronger environment for the U.S. economy, then most likely rates will continue to rise as they have been doing. Most likely we get a steeper yield curve in here, and that would be beneficial definitely for the banking sector.
Mike, I'm struck by this consensus that we're talking about. People are pretty constructive, but still somewhat concerned and aren't going all in, aren't going full risk on. But if this is the consensus and you really have faith, why not lever it up with cheap debt, because you basically have very low overnight rates that probably are going nowhere but down in the near future, and buy everything risky in sight?
Yeah, I wouldn't be that crazy as far as, because valuation levels generically are very high relative to history, so it's a little bit aggressive, getting very, very aggressive now in the marketplace.
That said, right, high valuations doesn't mean that things aren't going to go higher. High valuations are the reason why people haven't had as much conviction this year, and yet the returns have been amazing. I guess that what's it going to take for people to sort of cross that threshold?
I would once again be a little bit more cautious of that, because we do have a forecast of rates rising. So if rates rise obviously going forward, historically that has put pressure on PE multiples. So we don't see much as far as 2020 additional PE expansion happening, which has been the case for 2019. Pretty much, I would say probably 90% of the move in the market has been PE expansion at the expense of earnings per share growth this year. I don't see that reoccurring in 2020. I think it's going to be a year where fundamentals and earnings have to basically prove where the markets are right now. And with rising rates, I don't see much, like I said, potential for PE expansion. So I'd still be a little bit cautious based upon the valuations where they are right now.
So, Mike, it looks like we're going to get a phase one trade deal. It looks like it. In 2020, do you think the market is then going to turn its focus to a phase two type of deal, or is phase one all we need?
Phase one is okay for the time being. Phase two is going to be an elongated process that's probably going to take years. So at least there's an initiative to begin the phase two negotiations, which obviously go much more into the intellectual property protection area than we've seen so far with phase one. I think that's going to be something which is going to be at least a positive. There's some progress. Likewise with Brexit. Brexit basically it's in its phase one deal right now as well. Right. Phase two for Brexit is going to take an elongated period of time. Wouldn't surprise us if that Boris Johnson's going to have to ask for an extension of Brexit going into 2020.
Got it.
And then the overall kind of overriding thing is Lisa had mentioned about basically levering up. Well, leverage is already there. We've already got, once again, significant debt levels across the board, both with particularly with corporations. So leverage can hurt. It can help, obviously, in the upside, but it's also deadly on the downside.
All right, Mike, that's great. Appreciate you checking in with us. Mike Mullaney, Director of Global Markets Research for Boston Partners. Right now, let's head down to our 99.1 studios in Washington, D.C. to Amy Morris for an impeachment hearing update. Amy.
All right, thanks, Paul. House lawmakers started this morning with a vote on a motion to adjourn, introduced as a sort of protest motion by Republicans. That was voted down on party lines. House Majority Leader Steny Hoyer says Democrats in his caucus are voting their conscience.
This is a serious day. This is not a day for celebration. This is not a day for claiming victory. This is a day for doing our responsibility.
Now, Hoyer says the Democrats haven't been whipping any votes and don't expect that vote to come anytime soon. They are just now starting the debate, which is set to last for 6 hours before lawmakers will vote. We're going to have a live report from Capitol Hill coming up in just 15 minutes. I'm Amy Morris. Stay with us. Much more coming up. This is Bloomberg.
This is a Bloomberg Market Minute. The S&P 500, little change this morning, a day after inching up to another record amid positive U.S. factory and housing data. General Mills is jumping after posting profit that topped estimates, while FedEx is sliding following a cut to its forecast. With few big economic headlines imminent and much of the U.S. focused on the impeachment vote, investors may take a wait-and-see stance as the holidays get closer. New York Life Insurance has agreed to buy a Cigna business that sells life and disability insurance. The price tag on that deal, $6.3 billion. They're becoming the latest insurer to make a bet on selling policies through employers. Right now, we have the Dow Jones Industrial Average up 18 points at 28,285. S&P 500 is up just a fraction at 3192, and the Nasdaq Composite Index also fractionally higher at 8823. I'm John Tucker, Bloomberg Radio.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
The market's in focus every business day. The P&L Podcast with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz.
Are there some sectors that you want to have more or less exposure to?
What's behind this engine of gains?
Analysis of the day's Wall Street action.
The U.S. market looks relatively safe.
From Bloomberg Intelligence, Bloomberg Opinion, and influential newsmakers.
Ward McCarthy joins us right now.
P&L with Paul Sweeney and Lisa Abramowitz. Listen today on Bloomberg.com, the Bloomberg Business app, or subscribe on Apple Podcasts.
How's work? If you're not loving your job and you're getting those Sunday blues, now's the time to make a change. With a LinkedIn app, it's now easier to find and land the job meant for you. There are millions of jobs on offer, and the LinkedIn app helps you hear about them first. Research shows applying within the first 10 minutes increases your chances of hearing back by up to 4 times. Stay in the know and grow your career. Download the free LinkedIn app today.
Ho, ho, ho. Who's made a list this year? I want a new phone, one with amazing cameras, ultra-wide lens, of course, live focus video. Well, it has to be 5G ready to stream all my films. Can it come with something awesome to listen to them through?
Darling, I think he was talking to the kids.
Get everything you want and more. Purchase a Samsung 5G ready device and claim a pair of silver wireless Galaxy Buds at no extra cost. Shop our 5G handsets in store or online at your local O2 store or o2.co.uk. 18 plus. Offer excludes Galaxy Fold 5G. Purchased by the 25th of the 12/19. Claim from Samsung within 30 days. T's and C's apply.
What was your favorite podcast of 2019? Well, here's ours.
This is the Open Ears Project, a new daily podcast in which people tell us a story about the piece of classical music that means the most to them.
Part mixtape, part sonic love letter. The Open Ears Project is where people share a classical track that gives a glimpse into their lives and allows us to hear the music and each other differently.
Brought to life things that I couldn't really put into words.
Search Open Ears Project on TuneIn to check it out. When you're not listening to your team, take it to the end zone, the rim, or the net. Keep up with the biggest moments in sports by following TuneIn on social media.
Block, Cook into the end zone for the touchdown.
From reminders of the live top games to tips of the best sports stations and podcasts.
Welcome to Undisputed. We are live from Los Angeles. I'm Jenny Taft here with Skip Bayless.
Follow and TuneIn on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram to get the most out of TuneIn.
Introducing a new podcast, ESPN Daily. When you want to go beyond your feed, when you want to get inside the score, when you want to get behind the highlight, there's ESPN Daily. Go deeper into the stories of the moment. Get the exclusive access and insider perspective that only ESPN can give you. ESPN Daily, hosted by me, Mina Kimes. Listen and favorite ESPN Daily on TuneIn.
On the goal line, Martin scores! He takes it home!
Hockey fans, the 2019-20 NHL season is here.
Here's Pietrangelo, he scores!
And you can hear the action live on TuneIn Premium.
Gonna move, hit a shot, he scores!
From regular season action to the All-Star Game and through the Stanley Cup in June. Hear the home and away call for every game, for every team live. At home or on the go, never miss a game with the NHL on TuneIn Premium.
Upgrade today.
Today, for only the third time in history, the House of Representatives votes on whether to impeach the sitting President of the United States of America.
The Judiciary Committee will come to order, a quorum being present. Having agreed yesterday to the amendment in the nature of a substitute on articles of impeachment against President Donald J. Trump, pending business is reporting the resolution favorably to the House.
Be there for the vote and instant analysis of what happens next with live coverage from CNN, MSNBC, Fox News Talk, and more. Search Impeachment on TuneIn to be a part of history.
In case you didn't know, TuneIn lets you listen to the same radio stations you pick up on your home or car radio, except you can hear them from anywhere. If you want to find a station from somewhere else in the world, navigate to the By Location section under Browse. Keep exploring with TuneIn.
Broadcasting live from the Bloomberg Interactive Brokers Studio in New York. Bloomberg 1130 to Washington, D.C. Bloomberg 99.1 to Boston. Bloomberg 106.1 to San Francisco. Bloomberg 960 to the country. Sirius XM Channel 119. And around the globe, the Bloomberg Business app and BloombergRadio.com. This is Bloomberg Markets.
Coming up, there is a death toll ringing for some private colleges, and it is causing pain among some bonds. We'll talk about that. Plus, we'll take a look at this historic day with the likely impeachment in the House, the vote currently ongoing of President Trump. We're going to be speaking with Chris Liu, former Deputy Secretary of Labor and Senior Fellow at the University of Virginia Miller Center. Right now, though, let's head over to our own Greg Jarrett for a Bloomberg Business Flash. Craig.
My favorite word, Lisa, fluctuate. The S&P is fluctuating a day after reaching another record amid positives. The U.S. factory and housing data. General Mills jumped after posting profit that topped estimates, while FedEx slides during a cut to its forecast with a few big economic headlines imminent and much of the U.S. focused on the impeachment vote. Investors may just be waiting on the sidelines for a while. The pound is extending losses after tumbling yesterday on renewed concern about a no-deal Brexit. Stephen Gallo at BMO tells Bloomberg they have the 3 to 6 month profile for the pound dollar, or as they call it, cable, to go lower.
On the view that the trade negotiations going forward between the EU and the UK are not always going to go very, very smoothly. But I also have to say, looking at a broader European picture, we also think that there's a reasonably high risk that trade tensions between the EU and the US could escalate in 2020.
We check the markets every 15 minutes throughout the trading day on Bloomberg Radio. S&P 500 is now little changed, up 1. The Dow's up 0.1%, up 24, and the Nasdaq's up 0.1%, up 8. The 10-year is down 7/32 with a yield of 1.90%. West Texas Intermediate crude is now up 0.2% at 61.06 a barrel. COMEX gold is little changed at 14.81 even per ounce. The dollar yen 109.53. The euro $1.1125, and the British pound is at $1.3080. That's a Bloomberg Business Flash. I'm Greg Jarrett.
This is Bloomberg Markets with Lisa Abramowitz and Paul Sweeney on Bloomberg Radio.
Bloomberg Markets is brought to you by Commonwealth Financial Network. For the 6th straight time, J.D. Power ranks Commonwealth #1 in independent advisor satisfaction among financial investment firms. Visit commonwealth.com to learn more. Well, small colleges in the United States are really facing a tough time. Dwindling enrollment is really putting a pressure on the finances, and now it's actually spilling over into the credit markets. To get the latest, we welcome Amanda Albright, municipal bond reporter for Bloomberg News. She joins us here on our Bloomberg Interactive Broker Studio. So, Amanda, really interesting story on the Bloomberg terminal today. Give us a sense of what is happening with some of these smaller private colleges and how it's impacting the credit markets.
Yeah, so in the muni market, the troubles of small private colleges have kind of been talked about for years. But lately, we're really seeing that kind of come to a head. There was a bankruptcy by the College of New Rochelle that a lot of people were watching just to kind of see how the recoveries would fare. It's still kind of not for certain yet, but it doesn't look too good for bondholders, even though the college was sitting on some really valuable real estate.
Amanda, can you just set the scene for us why private colleges are struggling so much right now?
Sure. So there's a lot of different factors going on, but I think enrollment and demographics are what people point to. So basically, the number of high school graduates is kind of in this flatlining mode. And there are forecasts that, in 2026, after that, it will actually start declining. So in regions in the Northeast and the Midwest, where there are a lot of small liberal arts schools, that they'll have to start competing for students, and that could actually cause more enrollment declines.
But this is not just a demographics issue. This is also a people realizing that paying, $200,000 for 4 years in college doesn't always pay off and ends up leaving you with a ton of debt. I mean, isn't that a big part of it too? And people are just choosing not to do it?
Absolutely. I think a lot of students, there's a lot of headlines about the student loan debt crisis that we're in. And people are kind of rethinking the value of a small private school. The other part of it is that, these small colleges, in order to kind of have the really nice liberal arts environment, you have to spend a lot to give that, small classroom sizes, stuff like that. So expenses are really becoming a problem for these institutions too.
So how typical is it for a U.S. college or university to actually tap the municipal bond market? Is that part of most colleges and universities' capital structure balance sheet?
It's incredibly common, and I think that's what's so interesting about this is, a decade ago, maybe it would be unthinkable that we would be in the situation that we're in because, the number of high school graduates was increasing so much. So private colleges, took on debt for dorms, athletic buildings, classrooms, and now, they're kind of dealing with these emptier dorm rooms, emptier classrooms, and so it's kind of coming back to bite them.
How much is this because of immigration, or how much U.S. colleges are attracting foreign students?
That's definitely part of it, and I think that's something that's affecting even public institutions, even really elite colleges. That's something that is really, really interesting to keep an eye on, the next few years because, ratings companies have even been talking about, the immigration issue and just kind of how international students are being deterred.
So the New Rochelle, they filed for bankruptcy?
Yes.
Okay, so do we have any sense, is there any history as to the kind of recovery rates that you typically get in these types of bankruptcies?
Yeah, so the College of New Rochelle bonds, they're trading around 40 cents on the dollar. There was a bankruptcy by Dowling College in Long Island, and bondholders recovered an average of about 17%. So that kind of gives you an idea. These situations, there's not a ton of debt at play, but, when you have 1,700 private colleges in the U.S. and, a lot of them took on bonds. That's something that I think is very concerning to bondholders.
Are there any estimates how many of these colleges will have to merge or close entirely to sort of make this make sense in terms of how many colleges there are?
It's interesting because there's been forecasts all over the place about closures and mergers. And what's interesting is that in both cases, there are impediments to both. So for closures, alums will often step in and do fundraising. So that has prevented some closures from actually happening. And that's why closures are still so rare is that, it's really painful for colleges to close. And when it comes to mergers, it's kind of like a company merger, only there's even more emotions at play because, you have alums who are worried about, losing the identity of their school. You also have the financials of colleges. Can two colleges make it work if both of them are dealing with the same, poor financial outlook? So that's kind of why both are very rare, but everyone is kind of saying, that they expect it to continue and increase.
Amanda Albright, thank you so much. Really interesting story. Amanda Albright is municipal bond reporter for Bloomberg News. I just find it really interesting. First of all, there are a lot of different interesting aspects of the story, but one is that, these colleges need to shut down or merge in order to make this make financial sense for everyone. Sort of what we're seeing with retail too, right? That you need to close stores, but it's too painful and you're using debt to kind of chug along and sort of spread the pain out for longer. I find that really interesting, right?
Yeah, it is.
And then the second thing is, people are starting to wonder, is a college degree worth it? And from some places, it's not.
But I think the studies have shown that it clearly is, particularly in this economy, kind of the technology-driven economy. You can't, those jobs that would support you, a trade school job, for example, those are going away a little bit.
Okay, spoken as a father of four children, who's going to be putting them all through at the end of 2025, I guess. But I'm just struggling with trying to understand when are people going to put their foot down. Right now, though, let's head toward our Genoa studios in Washington, D.C. Amy Morris with World and National Headlines. Amy.
Hi, Lisa. Thank you. The House of Representatives has begun its consideration of articles of impeachment against President Trump with a discussion of the rules governing a scheduled 6 hours of debate. Bloomberg's Irv Chapman is there. He's going to bring us this live report from Capitol Hill. Irv.
Amy, the chairman of the Rules Committee, Jim McGovern, launched right in with the charges against the president.
The President of the United States endangered our national security. The President undermined our democracy. The evidence is as clear as it is overwhelming.
Ranking Republican Tom Cole.
After a truncated investigation that denied the President due process, cherry-picked evidence, Democrats in the House are pressing forward with a partisan impeachment vote.
There will be a vote on the rules, and then the formal debate, 6 hours worth, begins. Amy?
All right, thank you, Irv. And the House also passed a $1.4 trillion government spending package that provides a fraction of the funds for President Trump's border wall. It also gives Democrats some spending increases for domestic programs, and it funds a record Pentagon budget. It also includes a repeal of Obama-era taxes on high-cost health plans, help for retired coal miners, and an increase to 21 in the nationwide legal age to buy tobacco products. The Senate is expected to pass this perhaps as early as tomorrow. The president has to sign it by midnight Friday to avoid a government shutdown. And a judge has ruled that former National Security Agency contractor Edward Snowden violated secrecy agreements with the U.S. government, allowing it to claim proceeds from a memoir that he published. Global news 24 hours a day, on air and on Quick Take by Bloomberg, powered by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries.
Vatsal Shah is Senior Project Engineer at Mott MacDonald, a global engineering consultancy with more than 16,000 employees. He earned his PhD at New Jersey Institute of Technology, and as an adjunct professor is helping NJIT students explore emerging technologies.
My focus is renewable markets, emerging technologies, the idea of floating cities. What are we doing to develop that? What will happen to the city on the water? Well, you're going to have waves hitting it. You're going to have solar. How are you going to develop plants? How are you going to develop vegetation and farming? That sort of thought process happens at NJIT. We actually plan out what will the city look like. How do we develop that? So in 10 years, we're actually ready to take on those challenges when we have our first development in the water. NJIT also has been doing